The namer's pen is no ordinary weapon. It hangs in front of the player's fingertips, like a solid light. When the person who names the name gets close to a resident whose name tag is cracked, the tip of the pen will automatically light up and give a reminder to correct the name. Unstable records found. Its civilization position can be restored by correcting its name. Do you want to give the target a name? On the streets of Weiming City, many players who were named immediately became excited. Unlike the Keeper quest seems to have more of a protagonist feel. Keepers are like record keepers. The one who names the name is like the savior. They do not record coldly, but find the names of those who have lost their names. This is more acceptable than a roster. Because no one likes to be forgotten. No one wants to be named forever. A namer player walks up to the child. The child was originally registered as post-disaster childlike innocence, but the supplementary list has just marked that he may just be silent in fear. After the name tag cracked, he stood in the corner with his hands on his knees. The person who named him squatted down and spoke softly. "Don't be afraid, I'll help you change your name to a better one." The nib lights up. System recommendations. Dream Boy. Ember. Zyogyron. Those who didn't cry. Every name is closer to sadness than to childlike innocence after a disaster. It's also more like literature. The player frowned and chose the one that seemed the softest. Zyogyron. When the name fell, the name tag on the child's chest reunited. Zyogyron. The child looked up, his eyes still scared. But the system shows. Name corrected completed. Crack repair. The completeness of the civilization roster has been improved. When Lin Yao walked over, the child asked in a low voice, "Where have I been?" The named player was stunned. What? Children touch famous cards. My name is Xiaoguerin, am I back? The player didn't answer. Because the child didn't come back. He was just given a name that looked like he had come back. Lin Yao squatted down. You don't have to call me Xiaoguerin. The child raised his head, then what is my name? Lin Yao said, you don't have to call me yet. The system immediately warns. The naming process has been completed, please do not cause residents to lose their names again. Loss of fame. Another fear of being exploited by the system. It seems that if you don't accept the name, you will lose your existence. Lin Yao looked at the named player. Do you know what you just did? Players are a little dissatisfied. I helped him repair the cracks. Childishness after the disaster is not a good name. Zyogyron is at least more of a comfort. Comfort is not about deciding for him that he is back. The player was stunned. Lin Yao pointed to the child. He asked where he was. The name you gave him made him think that he should have come back. The player's expression slowly changed. He looked down at the pen. But the system asked me to clear my name. Correcting a name is not the same as giving a name. Lin Yao said. You can't give a name just because you think it's appropriate. When these words were spoken, the pens of all the names in the city vibrated. System announcement appears. Mainline reminder for those who return names, people of chaos need to correct their names, otherwise they cannot be recalled by civilization. Xinhuan said coldly, it strengthens the sense of mission of the recipients. Lin Yao nodded. The danger for those who attribute names is not malice. It's a mission. They will feel like they are saving people. The person to be named is pathetic. Disreputable people are in danger. The messy people need to be called back. So they used the most beautiful, appropriate, and storytelling names to reintroduce people into civilization. But once a name carries a story, it is no longer just a title. It gives people direction. The watchman must keep watch. The little returnee is coming back. Mothers bear adversity. Those who defend the city must have no regrets. Lin Yao opened the responsibility book and wrote, "The name change shall not occur earlier than the person wishes. Naming is not recall. Not naming it for the time being is not a loss of name." The light fell on the name tag on the child's chest. The 3 words, "Little Returner," began to loosen up. A line of gray text appears below. Not named yet. The child touched the famous sign and asked softly, "Is this okay?" "Okay," Lin Yao said. The named player looked at his pen and murmured, "Then what will the named player do?" This is a good question. If you cannot give a name to someone, what is the meaning of being named? Lin Yao recalled that when the territory was first established in the first season, the names were not used to classify people. It's about letting people no longer be swallowed up by monsters, numbers, and positions. True attribution is not about giving the correct name. It's about guarding a person's right not to be called by the wrong name. He said to the player, "The person who assigns names does not name others. It's to prevent people from being taken away under the wrong name." The player was stunned. Lin Yao wrote this sentence in the responsibility book. Responsibility of the person assigning the name, to guard against wrong names and not to force the names. The metal box lights up. The pen in the player's hand suddenly took on a second ink color. Originally, the golden light represented the bestowal of a name. The new gray-white light indicates a misnamed tag. A system prompt appears. The name assigner branch is opened, the name discerner. Name discriminator can mark possible wrong names, premature naming, mission-based naming, and names imposed by others. The name recognizer does not improve the completion of the civilization list, but can reduce the stability of the wrong name. The player looked at his pen. It doesn't increase the degree of completion again. He gave a wry smile. Lin Yao said, "Because the final level of completion is the final draft. What we want is not to finalize it too quickly." The player was silent for a moment, and finally lit the gray-white light. You enter the name discerner state. The nib of his pen turned from gold to gray. He turned around and wrote next to the child's name tag. Xiao Gairen, it is suspected that it is premature to assume that he has returned. I have not confirmed it. Not named yet. The crack in a famous brand is no longer broken, but like a line that can be opened and closed. The child looked down at it and finally slowly let go of his hands holding his knees. The statue of the named bearer murmured. A new trial prompt appears above the square. The names are divided. Some of the named persons refuse the responsibility of civilized recall. Start the tide of name rectification. After the words naming tide appeared, the wooden plaques on the chests of the residents to be named in the entire city lit up at the same time. A large number of named players received high-value tasks. Limited time name correction. Complete the name change of 100 residents within 1 hour, and you can get the civilization pen strengthening. The more accurate the name is, the higher the reward will be. The wrong name marked by the person who identified the name can be renamed and repaired. The players immediately became restless. The reward is out. Civilized writing is strengthened. Time-limited mission. Ranking list. These game mechanics are enough to drive a large number of players into the wave of name rectification. Lin Yao looked at the name seekers running on the street and knew that the number of name seekers was too small. It is impossible to stop them one by one. Qin Wan said, "It is named after a limited time event. Then play slowly." Lin Yao said, "How to fight?" Lin Yao looked at the center of the square in Weiming City. Build a temporary name pavilion. Temporary name pavilion? Allow residents to receive temporary titles without stories. Wan understood instantly. If the namer's mission requires giving the person to be named a story name, provide an alternative title. Not called Watchman. Not called Xiao Gairen. Not called a mother in adversity. Just call them A, B, C, or today's name, Yuming, Qingyi, Nanjie, or Mapai number 7. The title is just for communication, not to define the story. Lin Yao wrote in the responsibility book. The temporary name can be used for calling, but cannot carry destiny. The temporary name is chosen, borrowed, and put down by me. The temporary name is not included in the name correction column of the civilized register. The light fell into the side of the square. A small wooden pavilion appeared. There is no plaque. Just a row of blank wood chips. Residents can walk over, take a piece of wood, and write on it the name they would like to be called for the time being. The first one to walk over was the child. He thought for a long time and wrote 2 words on the wood piece. Stones. Lin Yao asked, why? The child whispered, because I have been squatting by the wall just now, like a pebble. This is not fate. Not a story. It's just a title he can accept today. The name teller player smiled. Sure, Z is much better than Xiao Guirun. The child hung the piece of wood on his chest. System prompts. Temporary name used by residents, Shitsi. This temporary name does not increase the completion of the civilization roster. This resident cannot be renamed for the time being. The light of the tide of rectification slipped over his body without catching it. Lin Yao breathed a sigh of relief. Soon, more residents walked towards the temporary naming pavilion. Someone wrote, raincoat. Someone wrote, south wall. Someone wrote, I don't want to think about it today. Someone just drew a circle. The players who named themselves anxious. The temporary name pavilion will block the mission. This is too foul. The undecided are causing trouble again. But some of the people who named them stopped and looked at the wood chips written by the residents themselves. Their expressions became complicated. The tide of name rectification is still going on. The completion level of the civilization roster is still increasing. But for the first time, it could not devour all those yet to be named. Because some people are no longer to be named. They just temporarily have a title that does not carry destiny. A system prompt appears. Temporary pavilion established. Effect: reduce the efficiency of forced name correction of the named person. The growth rate of completeness of the civilization roster of Weiming City has decreased. The main line of those who have been named will enter the compulsory recall stage. Lin Yao looked at the last line, his eyes darkened. Mandatory recall. The author's pen is just the beginning. What Weiming City really wants to do is to bring all the people who don't want to be named for the time being, back to a position where civilization can understand them. Underscore 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 underscore. The temporary name pavilion soon became the strangest place in Weiming City. It has no quest rewards. There is no increase in NPC favorability. There is no civilization completion. Not even a map marker. If players don't see it with their own eyes, it's easy to walk right by. However, more and more residents are gathering there. The wooden plaques originally hanging on their chests were, to be named, to be recorded, to be disaster-bearing, to be proven, but now they were replaced by pieces of wood with very simple temporary names. Stones. Raincoat. South wall. It's sunny today. Don't want to say. Number 7. Slowly. A bowl of soup. Some titles are like names. Some are just the mood of the moment. Some don't even sound like titles. But they have one thing in common. There is no summing up a person's life. Didn't turn disaster into achievement. Failure to turn pain into a passable story. They simply allow residents to turn back when called. That's enough. Next to the Temporary Name Pavilion, Xingye and several register editors are assisting residents to write wood chips. They will also ask at the beginning, "What do you want to be called?" Later I found out that this sentence is also stressful. As soon as many residents hear, "What do you want to be called?" they start trying to come up with something that resembles a name. So Xingye changed his tune. "Which voice should I call you first today?" This sentence is lighter. It's also easier for residents to answer. Someone said, "Call me Red Umbrella, because I remember a red umbrella." Some people say, "Tell me not to look back." Xingye didn't comment, only asked, "How long will you hang on to this title?" The other party thought for a while and said, "Until dark." The compiler made a note of it. Tentative title, "No Looking Back." Valid until dark. I can take it off in advance. These records are not included in the civilized register. Only placed in the wooden box of the Temporary Name Pavilion. The wooden box says, "Borrowing office. Borrowed name. Not naming. It's not a name change. Not by name. Just borrowing a name for today." Lin Yao looked at the borrowing place and felt for the first time that there was a truly human-like place in Weiming City. But this kind of place is an obstacle to the main line. 40 minutes after the name rectification wave began, the completion rate of the civilization roster only increased from the originally expected 25% to 17%. A lot of complaints started popping up on the official Quest channel. The Temporary Name Pavilion blocks too many NPCs. Can those who are undecided not to disrupt the progress of the guild? The ranking list of the rectification trend has been slowed down. This is the main line of the entire server. A few people should not emotionally blackmail everyone. Lin Yao looked at the messages and did not respond. Because these sounds appear in every city. Some people in Taipei say that we should not slow down efficiency for the sake of a few people. Some people in Tokyo say, "Don't ruin your family's peace of mind by leaving things unfinished." Some say in Seoul, "Don't let people who don't want to take the stage interfere with success stories." Some people in New York say that personal vulnerability should not undermine the power of advocacy. Now, players in Weiming City say that the Temporary Name Pavilion should not slow down the main line of the entire server. Atlas is best at turning protection into a drag. Describe people who don't want to be defined as people who hinder everyone's progress. Qinwan sent a warning from the real side. The same rhetoric has begun to appear in Chinese-speaking forums. Some people call those who are undecided the main thread party. It was expected. Lin Yao said. There is even more trouble. Several big guilds are preparing to form a team to clear the name. They cannot attack the NPC in the safe zone, but they may use mission props to forcefully trigger the name rectification. Lin Yao turned to look at the Temporary Name Pavilion. Residents are lining up to borrow names. They have no fighting ability. Many people don't even understand why they need to borrow a name. Just know that while I'm standing here, no one is rushing to turn them into a story. Xingye. Lin Yao shouted. Xingye looked up. Shouting. Xingye's face changed. Me? You are the compiler. Xingye lowered his head to look at the loose-leaf album, and then looked at the temporary wood pieces. He took a deep breath. Okay. The players who revised the register began to line up in a circle outside the Temporary Name Pavilion. The undecided ones also stood over. There aren't many of them. But the temporary pavilion is small enough to temporarily block it. Soon after, the first group of guild players arrived. The person taking the lead is a name assignee, whose ID is Tianheng Bai. Behind him were more than a dozen name seekers and register keepers, all well-equipped and clearly members of a large guild. Tianheng Bai glanced at Temporary Ningting, and his tone was quite restrained. "We don't want to think about conflict." Xingye said, "Then don't force me to correct my name." Tianheng Bai frowned. "This is the main line. You can supplement the roster, but you cannot prevent the civilization roster from being completed." Lin Yao walked out of the crowd. "The list of civilizations can be completed, but people who do not want to be named cannot be included." When Tianheng Bai saw him, his expression changed slightly. "Lord Obsidian." As soon as this title came out, the surrounding players became quieter. Lin Yao did not correct him. In the game, he has already been remembered by many people with this title. But Tianheng Bai's next sentence quickly became sharp. "You have affected enough processes in reality, and now you also have to control the main line of the game?" This sentence aroused many echoes. "Yeah, this is a game. Isn't it okay if everyone wants to push the plot? Don't talk about rights in everything." Lin Yao looked at them. "If this is just a game, I won't stop it." Tianheng Bai said, "Then how can you prove it's not the case?" Lin Yao pointed to the residents. "After they are named, their language and actions are fixed. The same rhetoric has begun to appear in real forums simultaneously. The God's domain activity is training players to accept one thing: for the sake of civilization progress, positions can be defined for incomplete people." Tianheng Bai sneered, "Your words are too big. I only ask you one thing." Lin Yao said. "What? If you clear a resident's name and he says he doesn't want the name, will you withdraw it?" Tianheng Bai was silent for a moment. "If the system allows it." "What if the system doesn't allow it?" Tianheng Bai did not answer immediately. Lin Yao looked at him. "That's the problem. Some of the guild players are impatient. Why are you talking so much? The mission props can break the temporary status, so just use it." He took out a golden pen charm. Civilization Recall Talisman. Effect: after being used on residents with temporary names, they can enter the state of pending name correction. Xingye's face changed. "This is too much." The player said, "What's wrong with the props given by the system?" He raised his hand to use stone. The child backed away in fright. Lin Yao stood in front of him. The recall talisman fell on him, and golden light exploded. System warning. The target is not a temporary resident. Undecided person detected to intervene in civilized recall. Should the character oppression judgment be activated for the undecided? Lin Yao's eyes turned cold. Roll oppression judgment. Sure enough, the undecided are not completely safe. When he blocks the main plot, the system tries to push him back into character selection. 4 statues light up at the same time. The shadows of those who return names, those who keep records, those who overcome tribulations, and those who attain enlightenment fall on Lin Yao. System prompts pop up one after another. You are suitable to be the name bearer. You have established rules for the names of those who have lost their names. You are suitable to be a keeper. You have established accountability lists and process collaboration. You are suitable to be a tribulation breaker. You've taken on multiple city risks. You are suitable to become an enlightened person. Your experience can serve as a path for future generations. 4 characters reached out to him at the same time. The players were shocked. 4 professional adaptations? What kind of hidden plot is this? Xinhuan said urgently, it's characterizing all your experiences. Lin Yao felt a pressure falling on him. Not an attack. It's an invitation. You've done these things. You are these characters. Admit it. Those who return names, those who keep records, those who overcome tribulations, and those who attain enlightenment. Each one can find a trace of his past. He does give a name to those who have lost their name. Definitely create a responsibility register. It was true that I took too many risks. Really let your own experience serve as a reference for those who come after you. So the most dangerous thing is not wrong positioning. But it's a very reasonable positioning. Lin Yao closed his eyes. Then he said, just because I did it, doesn't mean I can only be. The responsibility book is opened. He wrote, experience cannot be reversely bound to identity. Having done something does not mean that you will always become a certain character. Civilization cannot recall undecided people based on past achievements. The metal box exploded with light. For character shadows were shaken away. System warnings turn red. Undecided people resist civilized role binding. Temporarily named pavilion protection is improved. The civilization recall talisman is temporarily invalid for residents within the temporary name pavilion. The guild players were in an uproar. Tian Hengbai looked ugly. But he didn't do it again. Because he also saw the scene just now. The system doesn't just want to name NPCs. I also want to turn the player Lin Yao into a character. That means that this event is indeed not just an ordinary mainline. Tian Hengbai looked at Lin Yao, remained silent for a moment, and put away his pen. I don't agree with all your statements. Lin Yao said, okay. But I will not move to the temporary name pavilion first. That's enough. Tian Hengbai took people away. It's not a defection. Nor is it support. Just pause. For the current Weiming City, pause is already very precious. Outside the temporary pavilion, Shitzi asked softly, will they come again? Lin Yao looked at the completion level of the civilization roster that was still rising in the distance. Yes. What should I do? Lin Yao squatted down. We want more people to know that you can call yourself Shitzi first, and there is no need to rush into being a little returner. Shirzi thought for a moment and nodded. Then I will call you Shitzi today. This sentence is small. But in Weiming City, like a nail, a child's right not to be recalled from civilization today was nailed down. Underscore 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 underscore. There was a fire on the east street of Weiming City. Not an ordinary fire. Flames emerged from the cracks in the street, dark red in color, like some kind of disaster that had been buried underground for a long time was suddenly awakened. System announcements resounded throughout the city. The resurgence of disaster. The civilization list has not yet been completed, and Weiming City cannot share the historical disaster. Please go to those who have survived the disaster to bear the disaster. As soon as this announcement came out, the fire patterns on the chests of all the Tribulation players lit up. They received a new main mission. Bear the disaster of unlogged residents. Each disaster endured can improve the stability of the civilization roster. The more disasters you endure, the stronger the fire pattern of the person who survives the disaster will be. If those who assign names give people names, and those who keep records give people records, then those who overcome tribulation give people the things that are most easily worshipped. Bear it for others. Many players immediately rushed to East Street. In the game logic, bearing injuries, absorbing disasters, and exchanging for enhancements is a very clear growth path. In civilized narratives, suffering for others is a noble role. Those who overcome tribulation do not need to force others. They even appear to be self-sacrificing. When Lin Yao rushed to East Street, several robbers were already standing in the fire. The flames wrapped around their bodies, forming dark red lines. Residents on the street looked relieved. For those who originally had "Waiting for Disaster" written on their chests, the wooden sign slowly faded away. Instead, the fire marks on the chest of the Tribulation Rider deepened. System prompts keep appearing. You have suffered the disaster of residence, the pain of losing your home. You have suffered the disaster of the residence, the unsaid sin. You have suffered the disaster of the residence, the shame of fleeing. The fire pattern of overcoming the tribulation is strengthened. The tribulation players turned pale in pain, but many of them had excitement in their eyes. This route is very strong. The stacked fire patterns increased the number of skills. After suffering a disaster, the NPC will be grateful and your reputation will be high. Some residents knelt on the ground and kowtowed to those who had escaped from the tribulation. Thank you for bearing it for me. My trouble is finally no longer on me. This picture is very touching. It's also easy to ignore problems. Can disaster really be replaced? Or is it just transferring one person's unprocessed pain onto another willing hero? Lin Yao saw a young Tribulation Rider player kneeling in the fire, with fire marks on his chest reaching his neck. His fingers were shaking obviously in pain, but he was still smiling. One more. The residents nearby approached him hesitantly. Lin Yao stopped. The Tribulation Rider raised his head, his voice hoarse. Don't stop me, I can carry it. After you take it, where will his disaster go? Get on me. Then what? The player was stunned. Then I become stronger. Has he gotten better? The player looks at the resident. The disaster preparedness on residents' chests has indeed faded away. But his eyes were a little empty. It's like there's a certain burden missing, and there's a sense of belonging to myself. He whispered, I don't have any pain anymore. Lin Yao asked, do you know what the pain was just now? The residents shook their heads. I don't know anymore. That's the problem. The person who overcomes the tribulation does not accompany others through the disaster. It is to draw away disasters. Once you detach, the pain disappears and the understanding disappears. And those who bear it gain strength and a sense of mission. This is the form of fire absorbed into the divine realm by the heroic narrative. Taipei's exhaustion is harvested. New York's trauma is heroized. The disaster in the unlucky city was absorbed by the Tribulation Rider. Each takes pain away from the original person. Seemingly relieved. In fact, it deprives people of their right to process their own experiences. Lin Yao said to the tribulation survivor, you are not accompanying him. You are losing the opportunity for him to understand the pain. The Tribulation Rider was angry. What do you know? He doesn't want the pain, but I am willing to bear it. Isn't this good for both sides? This statement is very powerful. If one person doesn't want pain and the other person is willing to suffer, why not? Lin Yao couldn't simply say no. Because in reality there is also companionship, care, doing work, and sharing. Parents bear the responsibility for their children. Friends get in trouble for friends. Healthcare endures patient breakdowns. Social workers take on the chaos of families. It's not right to not share the burden at all. The problem is that sharing cannot turn into taking away. Withstand the inability to become a hero enhancement. Companionship cannot make the original person lose his own pain. Lin Yao wrote in the responsibility book. Undertake disasters but not take them away. Sharing does not mean substitution. Accompanying someone to get through it does not mean taking the pain for one's own use. Light falls into the East Street flames. The flames quivered. System prompts. The fire pattern of the Tribulation Rider is disturbed. New status, companion. The person accompanying you can reduce the intensity of the disaster, but will not remove the memory of the disaster from the residents. The companions will not be strengthened by the fire pattern, but can establish a co-traveling mark. Again, no reinforcement. The Tribulation players were immediately dissatisfied. If you don't get the fire emblem enhancement, then who will do it? What's the use of accompanying me on the ferry? If the game doesn't give rewards, it means the route is useless. But beside the fire, a female player came out. She was originally also a Tribulation evader, and her ID was the person under the lamp. The fire marks on her body only reached her arms and had not yet completely spread. She looked a little shaken as she looked at the resident who had lost painful memories just now. He doesn't look better. Lin Yao looked at her. The person under the lamp whispered, "It feels like it's been hollowed out." She walked up to another woman who had a wooden sign on her chest saying "Awaiting disaster." The woman was holding a rag bag with nothing in it. She kept saying, "I lost it." The man squatted down under the lamp. The system prompts her that she can withstand the other party's disaster. But she didn't accept it. She chose to accompany Du, who had just appeared. Flames rose from the woman's feet. The man under the lamp stretched out his hand, and half of the flames wrapped around her. She gritted her teeth in pain. But the wooden sign on the woman's chest did not disappear. It just changed from awaiting disaster to under disaster. The woman still cries. "I lost it." The person under the lamp asked, "What was lost?" The woman cried and shook her head. "I don't know." "Then I'll look for it with you." After these words fell, the flame did not go out, but smaller. Women have no pain of loss. Nor was it swallowed up by pain. She still held the empty cloth bag, but no longer stood alone in the fire. System prompts. The accompaniment was successful. Resident status, disaster, may be supplemented later. The person who accompanied the ferry did not receive the fire pattern enhancement. Get the co-mark, empty cloth bag. There is a very faint cloth bag pattern on the wrist of the person under the lamp. No attributes. No skills. There is only one description. You once stayed with a resident during a disaster, but did not complete the disaster for her. The person under the lamp looked at that line of description, and his eyes suddenly turned red. "This is better than fire marks." She said it very softly. But several Tribulation warriors nearby heard it. Not everyone is convinced. There are still a large number of people who have survived the disaster and continue to bear the disaster. The fire patterns become stronger, reputation increases, residents are grateful, and the stability of the civilization roster increases. This road is so attractive. But companions began to show up. 1, 2, 5, 10. They no longer rush into the fire shouting that they can handle it. Instead, he stood next to the residents and asked, "Do you want to let go of this disaster first, or do you want someone to hold it with you?" Many residents didn't know how to answer. But not knowing is better than being taken away directly. The East Street fire began to spread. Part of the flame was sucked away by the Tribulation rider, forming a stronger fire pattern. Another part of the flame becomes a small fire and remains with the residents, slowly moving through the streets accompanied by the ferrymen. The unlucky city announcement has become unstable. The resurgence of disaster is being dealt with. The efficiency of overcoming the tribulation decreases. Resident disaster retention rate increases. The stability of the civilization roster has not met expectations. Lin Yao looked at these prompts and knew that Weiming City would not allow this situation to continue. What it wants is for disasters to be absorbed by civilization and become fire patterns, achievements, and stories. The person who accompanies the ferry allows the disaster to remain on the original person. Although it is alleviated, it is not transformed into civilized resources. This amounts to stopping the city from eating the pain of its inhabitants. In the distance, the flames on the chest of the statue of the Tribulation Rider suddenly surged. A new main quest emerges. Trial of the Tribulation Overlord, all disasters unify. All unsolved disasters will be merged into the Tribulation Fire Altar at midnight. Those who have overcome the tribulation can go to the altar to endure all kinds of disasters. After completing the task, the disasters in the unsettled city will be cleared. Warning: residents who have not suffered the disaster will be judged as a burden to civilization. Lin Yao's eyes turned completely cold. Civilization burden. The city finally spoke out. People who are unwilling to hand over their pain will be regarded as a burden to civilization. Those who overcome the tribulation will be pushed onto the altar and become the heroes who bear the pain for the entire city. This is not redemption. It's a sacrifice. Underscore 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 underscore. The night bell has not yet arrived, and the Tribulation Fire Altar has already risen in the north of Weiming City. It was a high platform made of black stones. The steps are very long, extending all the way up from the end of the street, like a road leading to a wound in the sky. A dark red flame burned in the center of the high platform. Countless fragments floated in the flames. Cry. Name. Unfinished sentences. No letter sent. An unspoken apology. Hate that you don't want to admit. Not daring to look back and run away. All the things in the residents of Weiming City that have not yet been registered, corrected, endured disasters, and enlightened are like being attracted by the Tribulation Fire Altar and begin to slowly flow to the north. The air in the city became hot. The wooden signs on the chests of residents lit up one by one. Unhandled disaster. Unnamed crack. Experience without logging in. Story not passed down. These marks are like charges. The Tribulation Fire Altar is the place where the city is cleared of its crimes. The Tribulation players gathered on North Street. The person with the deepest fire marks stands at the front. They already feel the rewards of the mission. Those who stand on the altar and endure all kinds of disasters will be awarded the title of Civilized Tribulation Fire. The fire pattern is advanced to the seal of 10,000 tribulations. It can permanently reduce the resurgence of disaster for the unlucky city. These few words make many players unable to refuse. Title: Advanced. Permanent results. Coupled with the narrative of suffering disaster for the entire city. The appeal of the main plot of the Tribulation Riders has reached its peak. The man under the lamp stood on the edge of the crowd, his face pale. The empty cloth bag mark on her wrist glowed slightly. She did not absorb any more disasters, but her journey as a companion made her endure many echoes of companionship. Those are not her pains. But it left a weight around her. She asked Lin Yao in a low voice, "What will happen if no one goes up?" Lin Yao looked towards the high platform. The system says that residents who have not suffered the disaster will be judged as burdens on civilization. What happens to the burden of civilization? Xin Wan's voice came. I found a similar state. It may reduce the residents' functions and even prevent them from entering the subsequent stages of the civilization list. The person under the lamp gritted his teeth. Isn't that forcing people to go up? Yes. Weiming City has never only used rewards. It also uses responsibility. If the robbers do not go up, the residents will be judged as burdens. If you go up, the person who overcomes the tribulation will be swallowed up as a hero. This is the double trap. It leaves no clean option for all well-intentioned people. Lin Yao looked at the Tribulation Fire Altar and suddenly remembered the question from the exhausting battle in Taipei. Who will bear the cost of slowness? Now the question changes to, who will bear the disaster that is not dealt with by civilization? If the answer is a certain hero, it will form a sacrifice. If the answer is for residents to bear it all themselves, that will create apathy. The real line of defense must be the third line. Sharing the burden, but not centralizing the sacrifice. He wrote in the responsibility book. Disasters cannot be concentrated on a single hero. Civilization must not deal with pain with the goal of zeroing it out. Sharing should be dispersed, withdrawable, restable, and rejectable. The light of the Book of Responsibility falls towards the Tribulation Fire Altar. The flames on the high platform shook. System warning. The process of unifying all disasters has been disrupted. Until the disaster is cleared, Weiming City will continue to be unstable. Lin Yao said coldly, instability is not failure. Cities need to reduce disaster load. Reducing does not mean clearing. Players need to complete the main storyline. The main line is not to throw all the pain on one person. The system is no longer responding. The flames of the Tribulation Fire Altar suddenly turned into a huge hand, grabbing at the unsolved disaster on the street. Residents doubled over in pain. The fire marks on the player's chest glowed brightly. Someone shouted, "Don't hesitate. If you don't go up, the NPC will be burned to death." A high-level robbery rusher rushed up the steps. The others immediately followed. The person under the lamp also moved. Lin Yao stopped her. "Do you want to go up?" Her eyes were red. "I don't want to." "Then why move?" "Because they hurt. This is the tribulation lock." "Not wanting to go up there. You can't watch others in pain." Lin Yao said, "It's not that the person accompanying the ferry didn't come forward." "What to do?" "Not going to the altar." He looked across the street. "Leave the disaster on the streets and spread it out." He shouted to all those who revised the register, those who identified names, those who accompanied the ferry, and those who were undecided. "Don't let disaster happen. Stand next to the residents. Let every disaster be accompanied by someone, but don't be taken away." This command sounds confusing. There is no system support either. But the person under the lamp was the first to run towards the woman holding the empty cloth bag. She held the other person's hand. "I'm still here." The speed of the flames flowing to the Tribulation Fire Altar was a little slower. Xingye ran to the old guard and opened the loose-leaf album. "You don't dare to leave, right?" The old man nodded. "Then let's not leave yet or give up the sphere." He wrote on the supplementary roster. "I am afraid that if I am still in my own place, I will be accompanied by the compiler to record it, and I will not go to the Tribulation Fire Altar." A wisp of flame fell back to the old man's feet. No more flowing north. The name teller player stands next to Shitsi. Your name is Shitsi today. You are not a returning child, nor are you a childlike child after a disaster. I don't need to send you up. The pebbles clung to the wood chips. The flames shrank into a small ball before him. More and more people are following suit. Not bear it. Not cleared. But stay with the disaster. The flames on the Calamity Fire Altar became violent. Those who had already ascended the altar began to endure all kinds of disasters. Fire patterns spread crazily on their bodies. Some people were so painful that they knelt down, but still shouted, "I can do it." But after the source of the disaster was dispersed by the escorts on the street, the flames flowing to the high platform were no longer complete. All disasters are unified and lost. System prompts. Disaster is lost. The concentration of 10,000 disasters is insufficient. The risk of failure to generate the Civilization Tribulation Fire title has increased. Players who entered the forum were angry. What are you doing? We're almost done. Let the disaster come. The person under the lamp raised his head and shouted to the Tribulation warriors on the high platform, "You are almost burned." A player with fire streaks all over his face laughed. That's my choice too. Lin Yao looked at him. This is another difficult question. If those who survived the tribulation voluntarily bear it, should they be stopped? If he knows the pain, knows the risks, but still wants to be a hero, can the defense say no? Lin Yao couldn't deny the choice for him. But he must prevent this choice from becoming a reason for the entire city to demand that others hand over calamity. You can live with your choices, he shouted to the dais. But you cannot ask all residents to hand over their disasters to you and achieve your seal of all calamities. The player froze for a moment. Flames twisted in his face. Lin Yao continued, suffering voluntarily does not mean that you have the right to reap the pain of others. As these words fell, cracks appeared in the fire on the high platform. System prompts. Insufficient authority for all disasters to be unified. Lack of express delivery by residents. Lack of consent from the disaster holder. Xinhuan said excitedly, "It works. It requires the residents to suffer disasters, but before, the waiting for disaster status was regarded as a tacit consent." Lin Yao immediately wrote, "Waiting to bear the disaster does not mean agreeing to deliver the disaster. Silent pain does not mean empowering the hero to endure it. The disaster holder reserves the right not to deliver." The light from the metal box passed through the entire East Street. All, waiting for disaster, wooden signs change at the same time. Disaster, delivery not agreed. The flames on the Calamity Fire altar suddenly dropped. Those who ascended the altar to overcome the tribulation lost a large number of sources of disasters and fell from the high platform one after another. The fire pattern didn't disappear, but it no longer skyrocketed. The player with fire marks on his face knelt on the steps, gasping for air. He looked both angry and pulled back from some kind of frenzy. "I just want to save them." Lin Yao walked to the bottom of the steps. "I know. Then why don't you let me save you?" "Because saving people can't let everyone's pain become your medal." The player was silent. The flames slowly retreated into his chest. The system announcement sounds. All disasters have failed. The disaster in Weiming City has not been cleared. New status, distributed and shared. The intensity of the resurgence of disaster has decreased, but it will continue to exist. The stability of the civilization roster has decreased. The rate of resident autonomous disaster ownership increased. Doesn't sound like victory. Even like failure. The disaster has not been cleared. Persist. Stability decreases. But the fire on East Street has subsided. Residents were not drained. Those who overcame the tribulation were not burned into heroes of all tribulations. The people who accompanied the ferry sat on the street, exhausted, but no monument was set up by the system. The person under the lamp looked at the empty cloth bag mark on his wrist, and there was a second mark next to it. Undelivered fire. The description is: you stay with a disaster, not complete it for it. She smiled, but tears fell. This road is so tiring. Lin Yao said, so we have to take turns. This sentence fell like an echo of Taipei's vigil pattern on the streets of God's doomed city. The companions looked at each other. The green pages opened the loose-leaf album and added a new column. Ferry accompaniment. Don't let anyone keep the same disaster forever. No resident should be forced to surrender pain immediately. Don't let any hero harvest everything in the name of clearing everything. The fire in the altar of calamity fire is still burning. But it's no longer the only outlet. Deep in the Weiming City, the third statue lights up. On the stone steps of the enlightened person, a new main line appears. The Preacher's Forum is about to open. Please organize the experiences that have been corrected, renamed, and accompanied into a way that can be passed down throughout the city. Lin Yao's eyes darkened. After keeping records, returning names, and overcoming tribulations, it was finally the turn to attain enlightenment. Weiming City wants to organize all the chaos that has just been rescued into roads again. Underscore 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 underscore.